Another rare video on my channel where I talk about books. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to what is really just going to be a really short February wrap-up, and then a look at my March reading pile of possibilities, with March being just stuffed with reading events that are going on. So I thought I'd just real quickly wrap up February. I did most of this by mid-month check-in because, to be honest with you, I haven't gotten through that many books since I did that check-in. So I just want to talk about real quickly two of those. I did finish reading Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. I found some of the essays near the middle-ish end of the book to be really powerful about, the uses of anger, and the essay about you can't use the master's tools to disassemble its home. Those would be really powerful, particularly again in their discussion about intersexuality, just below the surface rage. In one in which she was asked to speak at a conference in which she was one of the only women of color invited to speak, and how much of an afterthought that seemed to be, and how important it was, she thought, to blend all women's issues together, but to recognize their differences, and not all women have the same experiences, which I thought was really good. I did finish reading another volume from my collected poems of Nikki Giovanni. I finished reading that. I finished reading the third of my BookTube prize books, which I can't tell you about in that time. And probably most importantly, I did finish reading Down by the Riverside, a work of history by the historian Charles Joyner, who is the father of BookTube's own Hannah Joyner. And this book was just a real delight for me to read as a person who has a background in history. So what I would say about Down by the Riverside is that it is a work of academic history. It has all the academic things going on with it. It has endnotes, it has discussions, kind of a methodology, it has an evaluation of sources, and so there is that about it. But the first thing that struck me about it was how kind of foundational to our understanding of perhaps slavery, as we think about it today, this book actually is. I don't know of its exact place in terms of studies of communities of enslaved people in the South, and the economies of the enslaved communities that enslaved people in the South. But I thought there were lots of places where I went, yes, I knew that. And I think probably the reason I knew that is because this book was so widely read and influential that it influenced more general works of history, like textbooks, which cover some of the same things. And then my second really piece of enjoyment from reading the book was just feeling the delight that Professor Joyner, Dr. Joyner, must have had in his sources, because his sources were in fact the words, memories of enslaved people and their descendants, along with real records of plantations on which those very enslaved people had lived at one time. And I think the fun, the joy, the satisfaction of blending all that together to create a picture of this community along a river in coastal South Carolina, in which there were rice plantations, and what this community was like, what it produced, how slavery worked there, what the enslaved people there, what their culture was, how that developed, whether it was language or songs, or how they viewed their homes that they lived in. And it just really is a really great work of history. A couple of things are important, I think, to think about, to keep in mind when talking about, or if you choose to read this book, which, if you're having interest in this, I really encourage you to do so. But probably the most important thing to keep in mind is that there is a difference. And one of the things Joyner talks about in his book is there's a real difference between the way slavery worked in South Carolina, coastal South Carolina, where rice was the primary product being produced, and the way slavery worked in Mississippi or Alabama, or northern Georgia, where cotton was the primary crop. The slave system in South Carolina worked on the task system, where literally this was the older form before the gang labor system of cotton. The cotton economy came about. The task system was the system in which slavery worked, in which every enslaved person was given a task to do for that day, 1 or 2 tasks to complete. And the idea was that the overseer or the owner was supposed to make sure those tasks took up most of the day, but not more than the whole day. So, there was this kind of real careful effort to balance what was possible with this desire to get the maximum amount of work from enslaved people in every day. And so that does make the system of slavery in this place in South Carolina, in the rice economy of South Carolina, different than the gang labor economy of cotton. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind. I think it helps remind us that slavery was not monolithically practiced and carried out in the same way. Horrible, awful in all the same ways, in most the same ways, but not the same. And then, one of the things that struck me in reading this is that a lot of the enslaved people in this economy, this rice-producing economy of South Carolina, appeared to be content and happy to a certain extent with their lives. And then, Joyner kind of like drops the hammer on you when that part of South Carolina is becomes more or less under the control of United States Army during the Civil War. The large numbers of those enslaved people who ran away, who ran to Union gunboats in an attempt to acquire freedom, that they knew that freedom was better than whatever they had. And that massive attempts to run away kind of belie the idea that these were happy, contented people within slavery, which they clearly weren't. But anyway, just a great work of history, well worth a read. I read it as a Kindle on my Kindle as an ebook, and it comes with the charts and their pictures. And there's all the academic stuff in the end notes. So that's pretty much my wrap up for February. And then I wanted to talk about my pile of possibilities, my reading plans for March, and I hope I hit all of the things I plan to read and talk about. To begin with, I still have 3 more books to read for the BookTube Prize by the end of March. I don't see that as being a problem. I don't think any of the 3 I left are like huge. One of them is pretty big. I think the other 2 are reasonable, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'll save that for the end of or the beginning of April, so I can share all my information with you about that freely. So that's at least 3 books. Additionally, I am going to participate in some of the readathons going on in March. First is March Mystery Madness. I have 2 new Maigret novels by Georges Simenon, which I plan on reading for March Mystery Madness. And then also for my audiobooks, I'm probably either going to listen to the 3rd Tana French Double Murder Squad novel, or if I can't have access to that, I'll listen to a Wallander or 2 by Henning Mankell, which I really like listening to as audiobooks. So that's March Mystery Madness. March is also Irish read-along or readathon month, and so I have at least 1 Irish novel planned, which I'd already purchased, and I plan to read, and which I kind of hope is one of the books nominated for the Women's Prize, and that's The Wren by Anne Enright. So I do want to read that this month, and that will be the Irish. Then for March, the Mammoths, which we're supposed to read a really long book, I'm going to at least start reading 9th Street Women, which is by Mary Gabriel, which is a nonfiction work about women who were artists as a part of kind of the abstract expressionist arts movement, which I think people know Jackson Pollock, Mark Rothko, those authors' names much more, but this is an area of interest. Actually something I studied when I was in graduate school, and so I'd be really interested in this book. But it is big, and it is an academic book, so it will be probably not something I finish in March, but something I want to get to. So I think that's the readathon. So it's Mystery Madness, Mammoth, and then Irish Readathon. Yeah, so that's it. And then there's some other books I just want to get to because they're books that I want to read, 2 of which are a part of the Republic of Consciousness North America Prize. The first of those is The Long Form by Kate Briggs. I've heard good things about this book. Mark Nash had a really positive review of it. And then the second is Cross Stitch by Yasmina Barrera. This book I learned from Sarah over at Eyes on Indie. She read it and she really liked the book. And that's probably about as ambitious as I can be. That's way more books than I normally read. in a month, but hopefully the audiobooks and the shortness of the Meg Ray novels will help kind of get me through. So there you go. There is my February wrap up, my March pile of possibilities. If you have any ideas or comments or thoughts about any of the books I mentioned or authors I mentioned, please leave those in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.